Okay guys, so get this. You know Scooby Doo, right? Even if you've never seen the original cartoons from the 70s, you still know who Scooby Doo is. Everyone knows and thinks fondly of this silly, clumsy, cartoon dog who solves mysteries together with his detective squad Mystery Inc. And now guess what some big shot network executives did at HBO Max. They took Scooby-Doo, right? They took the names and characters from this universe, also known as the intellectual property or IP. They took this IP and they made a spin-off where they, and get this, removed Scooby-Doo from the entire show. Basically, the heart and soul of the entire show, they took it and removed it completely. Then they took all the other characters and portrayed them in a pretty weird manner. This new show is called Velma. Velma herself is actually completely different. Instead of being a nice, smart girl, she's actually very mean. She's still kinda nerdy, but also just a very annoying pubescent teen. Fred is also annoying, and he's portrayed as some white, privileged, spoiled douchebag with a tiny penis. They make like 10 references to the fact that he has a small penis in the first 2 episodes of the show. They attempt to joke about it, but there aren't really any real jokes. It was actually really hard for me to find the humor, just like how hard it is for Fred in the show to find his own penis. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, Nico, perhaps you're a little bit too harsh. Surely there are at least a few parts in the show that are actually quite good. And yeah, I would have to concede that that is true. For example, this was my favorite part of the first episode. Man, that was such a great moment, I almost had tears in my eyes. And of course, who can forget this great moment in episode 2? This was by far my most favorite moment of the second episode. It made me so happy. It made me happier than the day I graduated from college and didn't have to spend another minute writing stupid essays that can be written by ChatGPT nowadays anyways. And then my least favorite parts of these episodes were the entire episodes. I mean, I could get over the fact that they took the Scooby Doo IP and wiped their asses with it, you know, used it as toilet paper. You know, nothing in the show makes sense with the original Scooby Doo universe. You know, I can get over that, but the show itself is just so unfunny. I seriously didn't laugh once the entire time. And I'm used to laughing pretty much every 20 or 30 seconds in most comedy shows, like The Office, Futurama, Community, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you name it. With most comedies out there, I'm pretty much laughing the entire time. I'm a simple man who enjoys most types of humor, but this show is just terrible. Without spoiling too much, I'll try to explain what I don't like about the humor, even though spoilers don't really matter, because I can't imagine that someone would seriously want to sit down and watch this show. But if you're serious about watching Velma, then perhaps skip the rest of the video and come back when you've watched the first 2 episodes. Okay, so the first thing that really grinds my gears is that this show is clearly written by network executives who try to make jokes for young people, but are clearly so out of touch with what young people like nowadays. They'll be like, what are kids into nowadays? You know, I heard something about hashtags the other day. That's what interests young people, right? Hashtags. Why not make a joke about hashtags? What about a young person makes fun of an old person because he doesn't know hashtags? And then it turns out he knew hashtags all along. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Or they'll be like, young people like abbreviated words to sound cool. Like they would say LMFAO instead of laughing my ass off. So how about we make the characters use abbreviated words, but they use it very poorly, which makes them look uncool. Ha ha ha. Again, it was really difficult for me to find any humor associated with this. They also really overuse the trope of being meta about the show. So they will reference events happening to be somewhat like a TV show. For example, one of the characters will be like, whenever a situation like this occurs in a TV show, the character does this and this. So I'm gonna do that as well. And they use that like 4 or 5 times already. It's way too much. Like even shows like Rick and Morty and Community, who are arguably the most meta shows ever, they even use this joke sparingly. And Velma uses it all the time. It's like it's their only lifeline that they're just using over and over again. And then there are the other jokes that this show has, and I'm being very generous with the definition of the word joke here, but most of the other jokes are basically just commentary about race, gender, or of course Fred's tiny wiener. Fred's wiener will be exposed for the 10 millionth time, and Fred will be like, oh no, it's not tiny, blah blah, and just make up some excuse. Or how about this? Velma is in an argument with another girl, and Velma is like, oh yeah, well, you're a white girl with too much money. And then the other girl's like, you don't know me, I'm a white girl who's bored, and now I'm gonna leave. Like, what is even the joke here? And what is the point of having the term white girl in this exchange? It adds nothing to the scene. If you would leave it out, it would be like, oh yeah, well, you have too much money. And then the other girl's like, oh yeah, well, I'm bored with this conversation and I'm leaving now. See, the term white girl doesn't add anything to the conversation or the joke. And it also adds nothing because there is no joke at all. At least I couldn't find it. I couldn't find the punchline or whatever. Could you find it? Please enlighten us in the comments. And finally, I can't help but wonder, who the hell is this show for? Who is their demographic? It's clearly not for young people because they are so out of touch with pop culture nowadays. It's also not for the older generation who loved Scooby Doo as a child, because they're just wiping their asses with the Scooby Doo IP. The only people I can think of are like senior citizens who are also out of touch with pop culture, you know, who don't understand why kids these days use words like hashtags. Well, guess what? We don't use hashtags at all. I mean, like, I'm even a content creator on YouTube and on social media, and I barely ever use the word hashtag. Hashtags are completely irrelevant for social media usage or content creation in 2023. But these people may have heard some kid talk about hashtag 5 years ago and they remembered it. I guess these kind of people are the demographic, and also these kind of people who dislike Scooby Doo for some reason, who grew up with the entire Scooby Doo being on television. For some reason they didn't like it. One of the most beloved cartoons in entire history. They didn't like it for some reason. I guess people like this could potentially enjoy this show, but only if they possess no sense of humor at all. So yeah, I highly doubt that this show would get a second season. It just completely misses the mark on so many levels. But yeah, we'll see. Perhaps some people will still like it for some reason. But I don't. It sucks. It's absolutely terrible. I would rather sit on a bed of nails with my bare ass watching paint dry than watch this shit. Alright, see you in my next video. Later!